worst part about running a business is being every f***ing department.
Law school teaches you how to practice law, but it doesn't teach you a single thing about how to run a company.
Being HR, being the lawyer, being marketing, being business development, being intake, being finance, that's hard.
An efficient system might work when you're running a solo practice, but when you hit that $2 or $4 million revenue mark, the cracks in the foundation really start to show. You're burnt out for wearing every hat, the chaos bleeds into the office, and the team morale takes a massive hit.
My culture sucked. People hated me, they hated my law firm, or even the people working within it. It was just a means to an end for them. My problem was taking on too much at once and not having the operation set up and kind of sinking the ship with all of the work we were producing, but not having the systems in place to manage.
You can't scale if you're doing it all. You have to establish systems, put the right people in the right seats, transition from working in your business to working on it. You're no longer just a lawyer, you're a CEO.
At this point, I'm a lawyer, but more so than that, with the seat that I sit in now, I'm a businessman, right? So law is my business. And I think the tools that I'm learning now and, that the world is being exposed to is transferable into any single business that you want to do.
This is Personal Injury Mastermind. I'm Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io, the elite performance marketing agency for personal injury law firms. Today, we're joined by Michael Kelly, the powerhouse behind Michael Kelly Injury Lawyers. Michael has scaled to 10 offices across Massachusetts and recently secured a massive $17.6 million judgment for his client. But getting there wasn't just about trying cases. It's about completely overhauling his firm's culture, implementing EOS operational frameworks, and utilizing tech to keep a 92% conversion rate on wanted leads. Let's get into it. I'm really pumped to talk with you. You recently announced like a $17.6 million judgment. You had 3 women, guess, get injured in a tree fall accident. First, tell me about the case. Tell me about that scenario. It's just such an odd story to read from the outside.
Yeah, man. Things are happening over here, huh? That was a big one for us. That's our biggest to date. So very happy to secure that on behalf of the clients. Kind of a strange case, as many of them are when you get judgments like that, right? They're kind of not your stereotypical rear end accident all the time. So these folks were living in a rental home. They walked outside. A huge, like 40-foot tree had just been going for a while. Landlord was unnoticed that there were some problems on the property. It comes down, strikes all of them. We got some body cam footage. We got experts involved, and a couple years later, a good result for them. So happy to do that for the
Unreal.
clients.
I got to tell you, I have a decent amount of real estate, so that just put the fear in me of
You and me
right.
both, man. You and me both.
Before we click start on the pod, we were talking, hey, you've had this unique arc, right? Where you guys have just really, found what's working and you kind of broke through some different, milestones. And you mentioned that, hey, a lot of people are stuck at a certain point and, in that $2 to $4 million range. What's the move? What's the move that takes you to that next level? And talk to me about your story.
It's so interesting. This business is super interesting right now. I don't think it's ever been like this in kind of the course of time. There was this old guard that didn't have access to the things that we have access to now. And if you're not grabbing on to the technology and the advancements that are taking place, not only in our business, but any business, you're going to be left behind. So
Let's start with the front end, the marketing, right? A lot of the people listening are like, how do you get the leads? There's a lot more than just the leads, but talk to me about, what changed with the marketing. I know I've watched some of your videos and you've got Crispy, introduced to the world and television, but like, was it, doing TV and doing it right? I mean, that's a big investment. That's a big risk. That's a big, like, talk to me about the advertising changes that you did to get the leads.
yeah, sure. That stuff is scary because when you're in that's, I guess I'll call it smaller just because we're a little bigger now, but it's certainly not, small to a lot of businesses. But that like $1 to $5 million range, it's hard to get the share of voice that you need on a platform like television to actually make an impact. You know, it's so funny, man. Like my first year, I had a partner at the time, and we saved up some money to get a billboard. It was the shittiest looking billboard you've ever seen in your life. We threw it in, a part of town. I think we paid like $1,000 for it. I thought the phone was going to be ringing off the hook, as soon as this thing went up. We didn't get a single call, right? And it's very much like that with these, these huge platforms of advertising like billboards, television, LSA, PPC, social media, all that stuff. You have to have the amount of money that it takes to make an impact. And then you have to have the guts to stay with it, when it doesn't quite get off the ground. So that's getting, a little bigger, I would say into the hundreds of cases signed up a month. But for me, the challenge wasn't really the advertising, when you're closer to the ground and getting off the ground, I think the grassroots stuff is super important. Your referral resources, providing excellent service to clients. Even today, like 20 or 25% of our cases come from existing or previous clients or their friends, family, cousins, brothers, sisters, whatever it may be. So the service aspect is huge and you can never let go of that. Um, but the cases weren't my problem. My problem was taking on too much at once and not having the operation set up and kind of sinking the ship with all of the work we were producing, but not having the systems in place to manage, that uptick.
So you had let's jump to the operations. Let's jump right in. I mean, so was it when you started to develop the EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, or kind of this framework? Was it maybe a hire an ops person? Like, when did it start? When did you start fixing that bottleneck or that constraint in terms of your firm?
So you you just hit the two biggest things that were my challenges on the head. It was the person, the people, the culture, right? And I had no idea how important that was a couple of years ago. And frankly, my culture sucked. People hated me, they hated my law firm, even the people working within it. It was just a means to an end for them. And I knew that that needed to change. I didn't know how important it was until we started to change it and I saw, some of the good things that came out of it. Um, I made a great hire with Tim Paoli. He's our COO. He runs our day to day. He's, very, very bright, even brilliant chief operating officer that has made all of the difference for us. He has been kind of the tool that we've used to go out there and get the best people that we possibly can. And then the other side of it was the accountability, right? And I actually just had this conversation with our managing attorney last night and then again this morning. Not too long ago, I was in a room saying, "Hey, Dave or Pete or Bill, can you take care of this thing? We need this done." And then I'd move on to the next thing,
Mhm.
right? But Dave, Pete, and Bill wouldn't necessarily do the thing that I asked them to do, right?
Mhm.
So 3 or 4 months later, when I expected this thing to be completely wrapped up, buttoned, and done, it hadn't even been touched, right? Because Dave, Pete, and Bill go out, they pick up a phone call or get pulled in a different direction, and then it just sits there. So the EOS component um, was pivotal for us to increase the accountability, the buy-in, tracking things week to week, running the law firm on data. At this point, I'm a lawyer, but more so than that, with the seat that I sit in now, I'm a businessman, right? So, I'm running law as my business, and I think that the tools that I'm learning now and that the world is being exposed to is transferable into any single business that you want to do. So, and you hear stories. These people learn these skills. They were in law and they say, I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm not passionate for it. That's not me. I love what we do. I love that we can service our clients and provide great representation in Massachusetts and the surrounding areas. But if we wanted to do something else, I think the things that we're learning and implementing into our business could raise any business into whatever we wanted it to be. The principles are the same.
Yeah, one of the things I kind of wanted to get granular, on the scorecard, for example, you have your weekly L10s. Like what's some of the metrics on the firm side that you are really dialed into and like that you're looking at? Is it CAC? Is it time on like what are some of the metrics that you look out, like, for our audience, like, oh, I need to track that.
Sure. Crazy important, right? And I think that anyone that goes to the proverbial drawing board and figures out what they want to do and track, it's going to come out different. So I think it's important that, people that are watching this find what's important for them. I don't think that there's, an out of the box solution. Of course, we all try, some of us track the same or similar KPIs, but they're different from business to business. And I would say with EOS, you need to make it your own, right? I read Traction, I read Fireproof, which kind of takes Traction and makes it a law firm solution. We don't use all of it. We use what works for us and we may take things that we like and change it a little bit, right? So I think that you need to be flexible with EOS because it can be stringent. And if it's too stringent, I think it's hard to adopt, right? Particularly, holding yourself accountable and holding your team accountable. If they don't like it and it's not like doesn't feel good to do, you're not going to get the full buy-in that you need. But with respect to, like the KPIs and stuff, we do an L10 once a week that's run by department heads, not me, not my COO. We were involved when we kind of got this plane off the ground, but it's their responsibility on a weekly basis to run their meetings with information. So they are in a room with data on a board, looking at it, talking about it. The meeting has an agenda. They don't just go in there and say, Hey, we're looking at this new product. All right, guys, break. We'll see you in a week. No, no, no. They're in there talking about the same 6 to 8 things every week. Of course, things come up, fires need to be put out, and they handle that. And then on a monthly basis, the head of that department puts a record together with, a chiseled and kind of smaller pieces of the larger KPIs for the department and presents that to myself and Tim Bailey, our COO. So, there's a lot of ways to do that. And that's kind of the level that we're at. But if you're a smaller firm, and we've come back to this a couple of times because I think a lot of people are in that spot. Make it your own. You may not have a huge team and department heads and all
Mhm.
that. And the worst part about running a business is being every fucking department. I'm not sure if I can swear
Oh
on
yeah,
this
go
thing,
for it.
but being HR, being the lawyer, being marketing, being business development, being intake, being finance, that's hard. Where you can put the right people in the right seats. That's when it gets a little easier.
I couldn't agree more. I want to take a step back because one of the things you said, like, hey, we've always had the marketing, but like a lot of the audience, they're struggling, right? They need the leads, right? Take TV broadcast for I see a ton of clients still very successful with broadcast, right? But do you jump in if you can't be at top three? Do you wait until you got the capital deploy to be the number one or number two? Like how do you approach like some of these channels, let's say TV and then maybe digital?
God, man, such a good question. And who knows? You know what I mean? There's plenty of money being given out now. I think it has a lot to do with your appetite for risk. If you want to grow and you want to do what, you know, I don't know, maybe the top 5 or 10% of the companies in our space are doing, you have to be comfortable with some of that. Again, running a couple TV ads for a month or two is not going to do anything for your bottom line. You might as well walk over to the toilet and just flush it down or light it on fire in your backyard, right? So, I think the grassroots stuff, setting up your referral relationships, giving your clients great service. I hated hearing those things because they're all long game. Everyone wants immediate satisfaction. They want things done today or yesterday. And it's just not like that. You can't snap your fingers and, hit the fast forward button on the clock. You have to go through the tough times. You have to struggle. You have to learn. And you would say the same thing. I mean, you guys have had crazy growth, man. How many mistakes have you made?
Tons.
They kill you
Mhm.
sometimes, right? So it's like you have to be willing to face them and then come out on the other side, which, sounds kind of silly and goofy, but just is what it is. You're going to screw up. You're going to make bad decisions. You're going to waste money. I still waste money all the time. All of the time we make bad decisions with deployment of capital. So, it's just part of it, I think. But if you can really focus on the stuff that does work, like the grassroots stuff, I don't do as much of that anymore. We have a team that does
Mhm.
that now, right? And it's very successful. But we measure it and we have meetings about it. And we speak to the things that are causing problems and we look at trends. Did we sign up more this month than last month and more this quarter than last quarter? And if those numbers start to go down, we get into a room with, good minds and say why. And we try to answer those questions. So if you're not doing that, even on a smaller scale, then I've used this before, but you're just kind of wandering around. You know what I mean? You have to have a
Mhm.
plan in business, and it certainly relates to our business.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and, especially when you're small, doing those things that typically, I think everything can scale to some degree, but getting belly to belly and shaking somebody's hand and developing a referral relationship and really nurturing those are the, lowest cost cases you're ever gonna receive as opposed to when you start
Right on.
deploying, whether it's Google Ads or TV or radio or what have you.
And you have time for it when you're a little smaller too. Like I tell this story all the time. I was working in my living room for like the first year and a half of my law firm, and I got a fractured sternum case. Probably settled it for like $500,000 now. It settled for 60 grand, right? Just because I was new. The insurance company probably took advantage of me, but the fee it produced was $20,000. Dude, at the time, I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm fucking rich." Like 20 I've never had $20,000 in my life. And that's why we pivoted and started focusing on personal injury. But, for those smaller law firms, they're doing everything. You do have the time, you know what I'm saying? So you obviously have to work the cases, but, don't skimp on that business development time, that relationship building, that client service, because it will pay back whether or not you want to scale and grow or not.
Talk to me about the intake side. So, right now there's the shiny objects, right? There's the AI, there's the agents that can do the calls. There's a lot of different approaches on the intake side. Talk to me about like how you're keeping that wanted conversion rate really high and how you think about intake.
Yeah, sure. So 92%, right? That's what we go for on our wanted leads. And I'll be super interested to kind of see how this whole thing develops with the artificial intelligence and talking to a piece of technology that's not a person, because it's getting pretty close to feeling more seamless, right? I think at this point you can still kind of tell, but what we've learned, through the research and then deploying some of this stuff after hours and on the weekends, is that a lot of people don't care, right? We actually give them the option. Do you want to continue with this?
You know, that the interesting thing is, like, I look at, like, the pros, cons. It's like, well, if you got 10 calls that came in at once, well, your AI can answer all 10, right, in parallel.
100%.
And
And they never miss a phone call,
right, and
right?
then, like, the intake specialist, like, if they don't document, even if with the self-recordings and stuff, like, into the CRM, well, the AI is gonna have all that, right? So they can call
Right.
3 months later and still have, information about the case.
And that's one of the things they're talking about even more now is like deploy that representative as your chaser.
Right.
They can send the emails, they can send the text, they can make the follow-up phone calls, and then if someone picks up and can get transferred to a live rep, which was a ton of man hours and
Yeah.
labor, right? To have someone Sunday, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Saturday, Friday, Thursday at midnight, right? Where now it's like, it's possible to never lose a
Yeah.
lead. It's interested in contacting your law firm, because if that piece of technology is following up on everything.
1,000%. I'm like, on the agency side, I'm like that buy or die mindset because we're providing value. And I think about that on the PI side too. Like if they got a good case and hey, if it's even if it's past 14, 30 days, it's still in the statute, you get like I think we just talked to individual that owned a product called Nito. I was like, hey, after 30 days, maybe
Yeah.
you got your chase cadence and you stop at 30 days. Well, what's it hurt to put this tech on that for the 30-day plus?
Couldn't agree more, and they actually presented to us at the last conference that we were at, and they're saving cases that
Yeah.
otherwise would have been, marked turned down or gone. And then think about this, man. What if that $17.6 million case calls you at Sunday at 2 in the morning and no one gets it, and then they call the next law firm who does have these things implemented in a law firm, someone picks up and then it goes to them. I mean, do the math on 35 or 40% at 17.6 million, right? That pays for a lot of the TV advertising you're talking about, or the billboards that people want to hang. So you have to have this stuff. And, like the solos, like I remember going to court, dude, like for a case management conference, you get there at 9, out at 1. I'm missing phone calls. Like it used to drive me
Mm.
nuts. Like, who was that called? They didn't leave a voicemail. I called back, no one picked up. But it's like you have to catch every single one of these opportunities if you're gonna take yourself and your business seriously, and, what a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and that definitely solves the 24/7 and at least gives you backup. Like, there's definitely the advantages of a person that can be empathetic and can kind of deviate from a script and answer the true questions they're asking. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. I kind of want to move to something you mentioned earlier too. You said, hey, we were intentional about the culture. Like we want to be intentional and you turned it around like you've got a thriving practice. What were some of the things that you did? Take me through that and how you turn the culture to get that alignment.
Yeah, so I was a guy, and I'm not afraid to admit it now because we've come out on the other side, that didn't really love going to his law firm. I didn't love the people that we had employed. They didn't believe in my vision. They didn't believe in, what I was trying to accomplish, the help that we were trying to provide, while also, doing well for the law firm, the people that worked at the law firm, the families that the law firm supports. We have 85 or 90 employees now, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that they come to work and we're able to compensate them for the great work that they do for us and our clients. And there's a trick, that supports their families, their friends, people send money back home. We have folks working in other countries. I mean, it's beautiful to be able to go to sleep at night and say to yourself, I had a part in building this thing that has had an effect and a positive effect on so many people. And the culture thing, I think, man, and I never would have said this might be the most important thing you have. Like when I was listening to like Bill Biggs back in the day, no idea what the guy was talking about. Like, love Bill Biggs, you know what I'm saying? But like, that wasn't something that I was focused in on. I was more, how do I get the value up? How do I sign more cases? But if your shop isn't great and the work that the people at your shop are providing your clients isn't fantastic, then you are going to lose, in the long run. And we went through, a period of time where you get bad reviews or complaints come in or this, that, the other. And we finally stepped back and said, this needs to be fixed. And when we fixed it, and, we're going on, 3 or 4 years now since we really got in there and put our hands on it, the law firm is completely just rocket shipped it to another level. Like I honestly don't think we have a single employee that doesn't love their job. And that is very, very difficult to say.
That's incredible. That's rare. Um, Gotta imagine too, that with a long weekend, a 4-day weekend, and like people are ready to come back to work. Like they're not dreading that, you people, so
100%.
that's
And we do all that. We give unlimited PTO. We look at it, but if someone is performing well, take 7 or 8 weeks vacation. That's not something that bothers me. Now, if they take advantage of it, that's different. You have to have things to catch that and, have upfront, honest conversations. But, we give a lot to our employees too. And that's important. They have to feel like you got their back, and I feel like our employees do. And there are easy ways to do that. That it's funny. I'm sure you've looked at this too, but like if you polled an employee, what's most important to you, and we did this like 6 months ago, it's like 30% pay. It's like it's all that other stuff, that makes up for whether or not this person's having a great experience at your business. And we learned that, and we've really been obsessed with it since. And like I said, it's really paid back. Not only just like in the feel good and like wanting to go into your
mhm,
business and spend time with these people, but also on the bottom line, on the P&L.
that's incredible. Talk to me about some quantum leap roles, right? You said, hey, our COO killer, right? Are there any other roles that were like, man, I hired this and it was like a quantum leap, like it was like I think for myself personally, and I'm like, why did I wait so long for a CFO? Like, why did I wait so long?
Right.
Like, it's just
Right.
immensely valuable. Same for like a VP HR, but like for you, what were some of those quantum hires?
Dude, scary to go spend the money on these people because I've been watching a little bit of James Helm
Mhm.
stuff, and like one of his keys to hiring is find 10 out of 10 talent, pay him 12 out of 10 money. I couldn't agree more. You have to get the best in business, or you're going to be offering a product that is inferior to your competitor, who is probably right down the street, right? Particularly in my business. So we've done a lot of promoting from within. Our managing attorney now was an associate attorney when he began. Um, our director heads have all been with us for, a longer period of time, some shorter, but, like they're invested in the culture and believe in the culture. Um, Not easy to find these people.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And one of the hardest things to do, which we just did yesterday, was find someone that we thought very, very experienced, this, that, the other. We sent him our employment agreement, came back with like a million
Mm.
edits, things that, it's just like, the edits were well thought out, like crazy intelligent individual. Like you could tell just him as a lawyer, he would be exceptional, but just didn't quite fit into what we were doing. And not necessarily because he was challenging, the employment agreement, which I completely respect. And I think everyone should read those closely, but just the way that it was done, right? A phone call. Hey man, like, really excited. These things don't sit well. Can we talk about them? Would have been way different than like a 3-page email to our HR, director that was like aggressive and this, that, the other. It's like, at the end of the day, bro, you're still applying for a job
Yeah.
here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to hire you. And um, I didn't love doing this, but I had a meeting set up for in the morning and I canceled 10 minutes before just because like it didn't sit right. And I made that mistake before. And I said to myself, there's other people out there that can fill this role and be a better fit for us. So I don't want to introduce that into our culture. And it was hard, and I felt bad about it afterwards. Like I felt sick almost because I don't want to make a mistake, but you have to make these mistakes as the head of the snake and live with them afterwards.
Super smart. We've all been there, right? And you hire the person and they start and you think they're going to be amazing, then they're not amazing. And then you hire the person and then someone exceeds expectations. And it's such a challenge, no matter how good your hiring funnel and interview questions are. And it's
100%. And there's got to be so much trust, with your group. Like our CFO started as my assistant like 12 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So there's been like this promoting from within, and being around people that you really trust every day is so important, because when you are the head of a company, a growing company, the target on your back gets bigger, right? From competitors, from clients, from like all of the ethical state, federal regulations. Like you have to run a tight shop.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, and when you have 100 people running around, and one of the things that I think is, kind of cool to bring up that others might be facing that are trying to scale a law firm from a younger age is that I had all these like older lawyers looking at a 35-year-old being like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why should I
Mm.
listen to this kid? And they were probably right with respect to the law, right? But like they didn't know how to run a business, and they just, if someone's not going to believe in your vision and go down that path with you, you got to get them out because, even one person that's kind of loud enough with some respect or, kind of some cachet in the office, it can turn quick on you. So anyone listening, be very careful about the people you bring in. And even if it feels good and it's easy, say no and take the time, right? This whole fire, hire slow, fire fast, it sucks to live because we all need people, in there doing their job. But, the wrong person can really cost you.
So much, so much. So many hard lessons. And for me too, it's like,
I can hear you've been going through
oh
them too,
man,
man.
it's like to me the people component, like that's when I was excited to implement KPIs for people because then it's like it's not be like it's the number, right? Like
Right.
you're not hitting the
Right on.
number,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to it being kind of
Right.
subject.
I'm not
Yeah,
mad
I
at you.
like you.
You
We're
know, it
good,
is
but
just is what it
you
is.
know,
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, but it's so tough, but so necessary for leverage to grow. And you guys are growing like crazy. I mean, how many offices do you have in Massachusetts now? I mean,
Oh God, man. We got like 10 or 12 in Massachusetts, starting to creep into southern New Hampshire and northern Connecticut. So we'll see. We'll take it step by step and try to make some good decisions and learn from some of the bad ones we made in the past. But if you run a good office and provide a good service, the sky's the limit.
well said, well said. Michael, this has been amazing. For our audience listening, maybe has a case in Boston, maybe has in any of your jurisdictions, wants to reach out or has questions about the pod, what's the best way to get in touch?
You can call us. Our number is 617-444-4444. And our website is callkellycall4.com. And Chris, let me tell you, man, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you guys having me on and hope to see you in Phoenix
Yes,
next
sir.
year, man.
Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate it. A huge thanks to Michael Kelly for sharing his journey with us today. Scaling past that $2 to $4 million mark isn't about working harder. It's about taking off that lawyer hat and putting on that CEO hat. Micah realized to experience quantum growth, you have to stop trying to run every single department. You have to build a culture of trust, bring in elite talent, and lean into operational frameworks like EOS. To win in today's highly competitive PI landscape, you have to treat your firm like a business. And part of running a successful business is partnering with people who actually deliver results. If you're ready to dominate your market and want an SEO and marketing partner that operates on proof over promises, head on over to rankings.io. I'm Chris Stryer, and this has been Personal Injury Mastermind. Catch you next time.